I am very excited to see everybody here tonight. Great to see everybody on a lovely, is it spring now? Spring officially, spring evening. Very excited to have three distinguished guests with us this evening. Joan Watson is the Director of Adult Formation in Nashville. Jimmy Blankenship is the DRE up in Francis de Sales Parish in Purcellville. And then Deacon Sabatino is the Director of the Institute of Catholic Culture right down the road. So our first speaker to share a little bit about what they do and if you're interested how to get into that field is Jimmy Blankenship. So please give him a round of applause.
You're always supposed to start with a joke. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare one today. Maybe we can talk about the weather, how it's cold. It was windy. It blew my hair off. Being a DRE is so stressful. Working for the church is so stressful. I pulled all my hair out. Not sure which. Take your pick of jokes. Greg emailed me a few months ago and asked me to give a talk to college students. So I'm graduated from Christendom in 2005, so I know exactly what you guys are going through. I did it once. And to discuss with you about my job working for the church as a director of religious education. Greg mentioned that I'm a DRE at St. Francis de Sales Parish in Purcellville. If you guys don't know where that is, it's right up in the middle of wine country amongst horse farms and vineyards. A lot of very rich people. And it's a relatively small parish for this diocese. We've got only about 1,600 families, and there are no Catholic schools in the area. So anybody in the parish, any kids in the parish, need to come to the parish for their religious education because there's no Catholic schools. Got a small parish, about 1,600 families, and a large program of about 800 kids. So he asked me to come and speak to you about that today. Just a little bit about myself before I launch into the job. I graduated in 2005, and I studied here at Christendom with the intention of going into the priesthood. Almost immediately after graduation, I went to UVA to learn French so that I could join a religious order, the Institute of Christ the King, and their house language is French. If anybody's been over to Rome yet, their seminary is actually just outside of Florence. When I was there with Christendom, I went and visited the seminary, fell in love with the traditional Mass, the Latin Mass, fell in love with this community, and decided to join them and to pursue a life and a vocation. After about a year of discernment with them, it was super abundantly clear to me that I was not meant to be a priest, so I left. Around the same time, my brother had started a company and had grown enough that he needed to hire somebody. So I went from seminary to the business world and started working with my brother doing legal services. I was, in essence, a private sector sheriff. I served subpoenas, warrants, summonses. I did court filings, went to jails and served guys. It was quite the experience. After about 5 years of doing that, a decision between both me and my brother, we decided to sell the business and both pursue other things. We were both burnt out, living in the world, trying to pursue money. And we both were looking for other options. He went into sales, and I started looking to the church for employment. What could I do? I was asking myself, what could I do to fix the problems that I had seen, to right the wrongs that I had done? The legal field, the lawyers in the room. No, there aren't no lawyers in the room. If there were lawyers in the room, they'd say, oh, we're all about justice. The legal field is not about justice. It's about who can argue the best and about what political persuasion the judge is. And I saw a lot of that, especially in the family law, how families were broken down by divorce. And through the legal proceeding, I would see normal people go to go from a normal living situation to a very bad situation. And it broke my heart. And so I wanted to right the wrongs and to try to help these broken souls. Whether it was these particular ones that I had served in, a complaint for divorce, or other ones, it didn't matter. I just needed to do something. So I started working for the church. I started as a coordinator of religious education, which means like the number 2 person in the religious education office. And I got promoted to the director. A couple of years later, I moved out to Purcellville, to St. Francis de Sales, where I currently work. I live in Harper's Ferry. I own chickens, I play the banjo, and I like to hike. So I think that's a good synopsis of who I am. Why did I sell my business? Because I didn't like what the world was to offer. Growing up in a Catholic family, and particularly coming to Christendom, you can appreciate the good life and the goodness of God's grace and the joy that comes from living in communion with Him. To work in a world that's broken is difficult. What is a DRE? The DRE administers the religious education program, the CCD program. In order for kids to get the sacraments, to follow Christ's divine mandate of go out and preach to all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the church educates. We feed, the church feeds. We're all fed by the church. But the church also educates us like a good mother. And the religious education program educates both the kids and the parents. Mostly the parents. Primarily we see the kids, but what's the object is to educate and to evangelize the parents. We've got an entire generation, 2 generations of uncatechized people. And so we use the kids, we educate the parents through the kids. It involves 3 things. This particular field involves people skills, it involves administrative skills, and it involves theological knowledge. Okay, people skills. Coming from Christendom, everybody's Catholic. It's very easy to project the Catholic atmosphere on the world. All right? But that's not the way the world is. So the first people skill is to recognize that amongst all the brokenness, that the people that you minister to are children of God. All right? And so you have to meet them where they're at. God's blessed us immensely here at Christendom with a great community and a great theological training, a great intellectual formation. These people don't have that. They don't have a community, and they don't have an intellectual formation. So you have to meet them where they're at. All right? You have to understand the human condition, that it's broken by sin. We all are broken by sin. We all need Christ. We need the Eucharist. We need confession. These people are no different. Okay? So if I wasn't working as DRE, I would be in the same situation they are. It also, the people skills involves knowing that truth is black and white. It's either right or it's wrong. The people skills it comes in to apply that. The world is gray. All right? Coming from Christendom, it's easy to think in terms of black and white. But the world is gray. They don't think like we do. And so you have to apply the black and white to a gray world. There's a great quote from St. Francis de Sales, and it's sort of my motto in life, and certainly my motto at St. Francis. He says, "Cook the truth in charity until it tastes sweet." The truth is beautiful, but to a world that's not receptive of it, it's quite bitter. So we have to cook it. We have to give it that grayness and make it sweet so that the world can appreciate it. Okay? Administrative skills. We've got people skills It involves administrative skills, and I learned this through the business world. If I hadn't have owned a business with my brother, I probably would not be a good DRE. I manage nearly 70 volunteers, 70 teachers, not including volunteers in other areas. I've got 3 people working under me, so I have to manage employees. I develop curricula, the curriculum. I develop new programs. I start new programs. I lead Bible studies. Just today, actually, I finalized a summer speaker series for the men's group that I had started. There's a lot of program administration involved, not to mention diocesan paperwork. Joni works for the diocese, and she probably knows that all too well. I have to report to the diocese a whole lot of different things. So it takes organization skills. It also takes budgeting. All right? We like to think that the church world doesn't involve money. You work for the church, you don't get paid a whole lot of money, but you actually do have to run a budget. My budget runs somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 a year. Am I being a good steward do I know enough about money to be able to manage that? And am I being a good steward with the funds provided to me? Okay. And then finally, being a good DRE takes theological knowledge. And that's something you all are receiving here at Christendom. Even if you aren't a philosophy or theology major, you all have the core curriculum. It's probably a little different from when I was here. It's not much, but it's still there. Good. The theological training, the foundation in Scripture is really, really good. And you can use that, even at the base level, you can use that to be a DRE. Out of the 3 speakers tonight, I'm the only one without a master's degree. I've only got my bachelor's degree from Christendom. So you can be successful with just a bachelor's degree. You don't actually have to go out and get a master's degree. They take you a little bit more seriously maybe if you have a master's degree, but whatever. The teachers look up to you as the source of teaching what the faith is. Not to the priest so much. They see you a lot more. I have teachers, a 3rd grade teacher actually, commented to me the other day. She said, James, they call me James at the parish. She said, James, she's like, I'm learning new things every class. And she teaches 3rd grade. She's got a big heart, but even my teachers are learning from a 3rd grade curriculum. Okay? So the bar is pretty low when it comes to what people know, and what you've been given here at Christendom is immense and amazing. So you should be joyful in that. The reality versus the myth, working for the church. The church is the body of Christ. It's one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. The unblemished bride of Christ. All good, all holy. It should be easy to work for. There's a human element involved. All right? Not everybody is striving to become holy. Not everybody is as holy as you or I might be. Not that I'm proposing that I'm holy, but they just might not be there. They might not have that intellectual formation. Okay? It's difficult working for the church because you're constantly evangelizing. You're evangelizing with the people that you work with. You're evangelizing with your students. You're evangelizing with people on the street. Oftentimes I'll walk after work. I'll go and stop at Giant to buy my dinner, and I'll see a couple people just from my program. Hey, Mr. Blankenship. Hey, Mr. Blankenship. So you just in regular conversation out on the street, you meet with people and you're evangelizing. It can be exhausting, long hours. This is my busy season right now. And I have regularly work 6-7 days a week. But despite all of the hardship, the blessings are there. Every once in a while, God will give me a grace and show me what good it is that I'm doing or what He's doing through me. the conversions that happen. We had one 8th grader last year fail his confirmation interview. Completely blew it. Father had to re-interview him in order for him to be confirmed. Through that failing, his dad was present at the interview, saw that he failed, saw how badly he failed, and it came up in conversation with Father that he wasn't Catholic. Dad wasn't Catholic. Well, Dad entered into the RCI program this year and was baptized Catholic 2 weeks ago at Easter, the Easter Vigil. So the blessings are there. The joy is given to you. Doing the Lord's work is a joyful thing. Sometimes it might be painful, but in the end, that joy is lasting. You are doing the Lord's work. Would I ever go back to living in the world? I live in the world. Would I ever go back to the business world? Probably not. As hard as church work is, if you decide to go into it, there's a hook.
Learn more about my faith. And,
There's a hook.
And I'm really glad Dr. Flippin's here, because it was actually my Rome semester with Dr. Flippin in 2005 that really planted a seed in my heart that I wanted to work for the church. So I was over there in the spring of 2005, which to me doesn't seem like that long ago, but to you I'm sure it does, because it was when John Paul II died. So 11 years ago, I was studying in Rome when John Paul II died, and we were all over there for everything, for his funeral, for the conclave that elected Benedict, everything. And I remember all of us sitting around talking in that Rome semester, why were we here? Why were we chosen to be here in Rome in 2005, at this moment in history, experiencing these events? And most of us all agreed that we were there because God wanted something big from us, that we were really there because we were given this opportunity to pass it on to others. And I really felt the call of John Paul II that semester to work for the church. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew how much I fell in love with the church in Rome, and I wanted to share that with others, and I wanted other people to fall in love with the church. And so when I came back my senior year, I was very active at Christendom. I was president of the senior class and Student Achievement Award, a winner. I loved Christendom, and part of me wanted to stay here forever. But I thought, okay, there's something else I need to do. And I actually went to Steubenville. I betrayed Christendom, and no, I went to Steubenville to get my master's in theology. Partly, I went to Steubenville because at the time, the master's in theology program had a Rome program. And so I thought, this is great. I'm going to go get my master's in theology in 2 years, and that will entail me going back to Rome for another semester. And so I did. I worked on my master's for 2 years, finished up my last semester going to the Angelicum in Rome. And while I was at Steubenville, Christendom had equipped me so well for graduate work that I was bored. And I remember my first semester, I would have all my reading done for class. And I had tried to take like 4 or 5 classes, and my advisors were like, no, they're master level classes, you can only take 3. And I remember just being bored. Like, I never got all my reading done at Christendom, ever, right? And I'm like, I got all my reading done for class tomorrow. What am I going to do with my life? So I actually decided to get a job. And Scott Hahn was hiring at the time. And so I went to go work for Scott Hahn at the St. Paul Center, which is a biblical research institute that he has. And originally I went and I applied for data entry for the St. Paul Center, and I was just supposed to enter donations in. So I go in and I have the interview with his office manager, and I'm just like, okay, I can data entry, I can enter stuff into a computer. But his office manager realized that I had a liberal arts education, and they didn't tell me this till later, but they had an opening for their bookkeeper. And he was like, so what do you know about finance? Like, I know nothing about finance. I don't even balance my own checkbook. But I kind of like tried to hide that. And I'm like, well, I worked as a cashier once. I don't know anything. So they ended up hiring me as bookkeeper because I had a liberal arts education, and they knew she has no idea what she's doing, but she can teach herself. And so for a year and a half, I was Scott Hahn's bookkeeper, not having any background in finance whatsoever. I was teaching myself accounting concepts. My brother's an accountant, so I would call him up at night and be like, what's a debit and what's a credit? And I don't know what I'm doing. And I was handling all the money for this nonprofit organization. So Christendom helped me get this random job in bookkeeping because of my liberal arts education. So I worked for Hahn for 2 years, and it was a great blessing because knowing Scott Hahn and having that connection then got me into parts in the church that I probably wouldn't have. I still do a little bit of work for him. I wrote a Bible study for him a few years ago. I still go up and teach for them in the summer up at Steubenville. And so it was a great blessing to work for him. And he speaks very, very highly of Christendom. And so that meant a lot to me that someone I respected outside in the church thought so highly of my alma mater. So after I studied in Rome with Steubenville for the second time, I came down to Nashville, where I'm living now, and I worked for the Nashville Dominicans, a beautiful religious order. My sister's a Dominican, so I started working for them as assistant director of catechetics at their liberal arts college, Aquinas College in Nashville, Tennessee. And so I worked there for 6 years, and what we basically did was we trained the teachers. So like the teachers that would work for Jimmy as a DRE, we were training them and making sure the volunteers knew the faith and knew what they were supposed to then be teaching and passing on. So it was basically a certification program for the diocese that Aquinas College and the Nashville Dominicans were doing, and so I was working in that. And for 6 years I did that for the diocese, and working with catechists, working with parish volunteers, showed me that, wow, they're going and teaching these little kids, but these little kids are going home to parents who don't know the faith. And I came face to face with thousands of Catholics in Nashville that had no idea what the church taught. And I realized how blessed I'd been to know what the church, to be given this education at Christendom at Steubenville. And so I had the guts to have a meeting with Bishop Choby of Nashville, who's fantastic. And he knew me because I was training his catechists. And I said, Bishop Choby, what I think you need is a director of adult formation for the Diocese of Nashville. And he said, that sounds like great. When can you start? So I basically created my own position with the bishop. And so I've been working as director of adult formation in Nashville for about 2 years now. Part of that, the bishop had appointed me to the National Advisory Council for the USCCB about 6 years ago now. And that is a great group of about 50 lay people throughout the country who meet twice a year and advise the bishops about what people in the pew think about things. And it's a kind of a hidden gem. I didn't know it existed till I served on the council. And that opened my eyes in a big way to the church, the universal church throughout the United States, and what the church needed. And that's why the bishop kind of took me seriously then when I proposed this position. He knew I saw the church as a whole. I wasn't just looking at Nashville. I was seeing the church as a universal whole in the United States. So my experience with the National Advisory Council was fantastic. So what does the Director of Adult Formation do in the diocese? Basically, I provide opportunities on the diocesan level to any adult, free of charge, to any adult to come and learn more about the faith. So we do lecture series. I have Bible studies. I just wrote a Bible study this spring to give free of charge to any parish who wants to do it. It's all online. You download it. You have my talking head on a video. And so any parish can automatically download this Bible study and have a small group Bible study. I work with the parishes, sometimes advising them, different curriculums, different adult faith formation opportunities. I blog, I send out e-newsletters, anything I can do to get in the adult's head, especially people who don't necessarily know they want to know what I have to offer. Sometimes I'm just a sounding board for DREs or for struggling RCIA directors. I'm there to listen to them and help them in their job. Again, it's a new position in the diocese. A lot of dioceses don't have them yet, but I really believe it's the future of catechesis in the country. Like Jimmy said, we have lost 2 at least generations of people who don't have the knowledge that we have, that we've gained from Christendom. And so just getting out there and giving them so that they can then educate their children, I think is really important. Reality versus illusion, in like Jimmy mentioned, I agree with everything he said. One thing that I thought was, I can work for the church because I went to Christendom, and it's just something I can fall into. I think some people think, it can be a nice plan B, right? I'm Catholic, I love the church, and so if this doesn't work out, I'll go work for the church. And yeah, it is a nice plan B, but I don't think you can really look at working for the church as just a backup plan. We have too many people in ministry today who have chosen it because it's kind of this plan B that they fell into. And I think you'll do a disservice to yourself, and you'll do a disservice to your job if it's not something that you're passionate about. It's not easy. Just because you're a good practicing Catholic that loves the church, it's not easy to work for the church. And so I think if it's not something you're passionate about, if you think, oh, I can just fall into it because I'm Catholic, I just think you'll do a disservice to it, and you'll end up becoming very discouraged yourself. A friend recently told me, the diocese must be such an uplifting place to work. It must be so uplifting to work for the church. And some days it is. I am very, very blessed to have a fantastic bishop he's wonderful. He's a true father. And I report straight to him, which is also a great blessing. And it's a great place to work some days. I'm very, very honored to spend my life preaching the gospel. But other days, it's everything but spiritually uplifting. And you have to nourish your own spiritual life. You have to nourish yourself. You can't expect your job to uplift you spiritually. You have to go, you have to have a daily prayer life so that then you can go into the trenches. And I think some people think, oh, because I work for the church, that's where I can be fed. And you have to feed yourself outside of work. I think a lot of people go in working for the church thinking, I'm going to go and I'm going to turn things around, right? I'm going to change it all overnight. And, I had this great Christendom education. It was supplemented with this great Franciscan education at Steubenville. And I couldn't wait to share it. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to take Nashville by storm, right? I mean, I'm going to go into the Bible Belt. It's the buckle of the Bible Belt, right? We're 2% Catholic. And I thought, I have the truth, and I'm going to just change everything, right? And if it's one thing that I've learned, especially in the last 2 years of adult formation, ministry happens one soul at a time. And that probably sounds cliche, but it's true and it's slow. I realized I can have coffee with one person and really talk to them and help them see the truth. Well, that's slow, right? Just to have coffee with one person. Okay. I was ready to go speak to thousands of people, but it really happens one soul at a time. Ronald Knox, who I love. If you haven't read Ronald Knox, you should. He's great. Ronald Knox said that Jesus picked fishermen to be apostles because they're patient. And they're willing to stay up all night and maybe not even catch a fish. And I thought that's a great imagery. That's great imagery for those of us who work in the church. It takes patience to make disciples. One thing I've learned for working for the church is that it requires a lot of listening. You might have coffee with that one person and listen to their whole life story and not feel like you're making any headway, but you're just listening, and that's what they need from you at that moment. You have to be humble, and you have to be willing to listen. I agree with Jimmy that, truth is black and white, and if you don't have a grasp on that, well, you probably shouldn't be here, because if you don't know that, right, truth exists, the incarnation happened. But it's not black and white. It's black and white, and truth is there. But if you proclaim it without charity, you're not proclaiming the truth. And it takes time, and it takes experience, and it takes a lot of listening to reach one soul at a time. I left Steubenville thinking I was an expert, and I wasn't, because I didn't know how to bring it to the people. Maybe people that you disagree with actually have something to teach you, and that took me a while to get used to. When I was on the National Advisory Council for the bishops, there were a lot of people on that council that they were just wrong. I mean, they were wrong about things. But I realized they had things to teach me, and I could listen, and I could learn from them, and I could be humble. And there was one woman, religious in particular, and she taught me so much about how to look critically at situations, even though we disagreed diametrically about a lot. I learned a lot from her. And so I was blessed to learn from this. I was blessed to learn from other people's mistakes. I worked under someone who liked to just bulldoze her way into a group. And she went to great Catholic colleges, and she knew the truth, and she was just going to hit you over the head with the catechism. People don't respond well to being hit over the head with the catechism. It's tempting to do when you are blessed with the education we're blessed with, but it doesn't really work. And so people are still willing to listen to me because I worked under her, and I learned from her mistakes and realized I have to treat these people like people, and I have to reach them one soul at a time. So whether you go to Christendom or Franciscan or TAC or Ave, there's a real temptation to think you have all the answers, right? And you're just going to walk in after graduation and be, it's easy to go into a parish and be like, their liturgy stinks, and I'm going to teach them how this is done. And you have to, again, win people over one soul at a time. It's great being a faithful Catholic in my field. It's fantastic. People are starving. People are really, really hungry for what we've been given at Christendom, and that's really exciting. So despite the ups and downs, maybe, of daily life, working, like any occupation, right, you have to work with people, and people are hard to work with. It's a joy to work for the church because I get paid to go out and preach the gospel and to share the beauty of the church. I love that I get paid for blogging every Friday on Integrated Catholic Life, whatever I want to talk about, just sharing the beauty of the church and the beauty of the gospel. I love seeing people so hungry and excited. I love teaching scripture. That's my favorite topic to teach and to talk about because people are hungry for it. People are starving. And I love that I get to pass on what I received at Franciscan and Christendom and just give people the beauty of the truth that they haven't heard. It's fun at the diocese now that I've started working there. I'm the go-to phone call. Like when someone calls into the diocese with a really crazy phone call or a really crazy question, they just transfer to me. So I get these crazy phone calls like, what's the Holy Day of Obligation? I mean, like just randomness, like what's a Josephite marriage and how do I contract one? I'm like, what am I doing? What? Like, why? Why do you want a Josephite marriage? No. Seriously, like 3 weeks ago, that was the question. And I was like, who's transferring these phone calls to me? But they've quickly realized that I'm the one that can answer these random questions. And so how do I get an exorcism? I'm like, I don't know how, so it's fun to be kind of the answer girl, and you'll find that when you go out, because of your Christendom education, you'll be that person that has the answers. And so it's always a challenge to see, like, here we go, right? It's never a dull moment because you have the truth and people are hungry for it. So, yes, that's it. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much, Joan. Now you know if you're trying to get in touch with her and you can't, just spout some crazy heretical question when you call into the diocese and be able to track her down. Our next guest, our final guest for tonight, is a 2004 theology graduate, Deacon Sabatino, who next year at this time will be father. Is that correct? Less than a month. Oh, so coming up. So you're catching him right before he takes a big plunge. And he's currently the director of the Institute of Catholic Culture. He's also a well-traveled apologist. So if you could, please give Deacon a round of applause.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you all for being here this evening. I had to laugh at the Josephite marriage comment because, yes, I am a deacon of the Catholic Church, and I will be ordained a priest, God willing, on May 1st. And I am also married to a beautiful Christendom graduate right in the back, Linda Carnazzo, Linda Antunes. And we have 5 children. We certainly do not have a Josephite marriage. I don't really fit the bill of the normal Christendom grad getting up here to speak with you, which is probably why it took so long to invite me back, even though I live right down the road. So, yes, I graduated in 2004, and I am married, and I usually walk around wearing a 4th century Byzantine dress, which puts me a little bit outside of the norm. And what I do for a living is a little bit outside of the norm also. While Jimmy and Joan do wonderful and great work in the church, within the framework of the church, I certainly work outside of that framework, trying at all times to get inside that framework. Jimmy and I work together quite a bit for adult education at his parish. I came to Christendom in 2000 at 25 years old. I had been away from the church for a number of years during high school in California, and after high school I owned a landscaping business. But I quickly found that the happiness, or so-called happiness, which the world offered was a false happiness, and I found myself very far away from Christ and very far away from true happiness. And it was only when I turned back to the church and I went to Mass, I went to Holy Confession, that I began the image of the prodigal son. I mean, I was way out there in the mud pit, and it took me about 4 years to get back. And Christendom College was certainly part of that. When I sold off my business, packed up everything I owned in my pickup truck, and drove across the country to a place I had never been to before. I had never been to Virginia, let alone Christendom College, but I knew I wanted something different for my life. And I had had a taste of what that was, a very small taste when I started to read the Church Fathers. It was here at Christendom that I discovered something more, though. I discovered, as I hope you have discovered, that Christ is the author of history. He is the wisdom of philosophy. He is the revelation of theology. Being a Catholic is not about being smart. It's not about learning things. It's about living. Yes, we must learn how to live. Hey, Tono, how you doing, brother? Yeah, he's the son of a priest at my parish. Yes, we must learn, but more importantly, we must take what we have learned and do something with it. And I felt very called by Christ to give the gift I had received to others. I remember going home after my first semester here at Christendom, having gone through Dr. O'Donnell's History 101 course. I was with Dr. Cuddeback in Philosophy 101, and my mind was just absolutely just blowing apart. I couldn't believe what I was learning, and I remember sitting down with my best friend at the time, my cousin Damien, and trying to explain to him the basics of philosophy, and I made a total idiot of myself. I didn't know how to communicate the gift I had received, but I knew it was worth communicating. And I set my life on a course to give that gift to others. For me, it is the most profound and life-changing gift I have ever received. That is the education I received at Christendom College. It completely changed the course of my life. And while I was here at Christendom, time and time again, as a little older student, the parents would come to pick up their kids. I was bored of talking to 18 and 19-year-olds, I'm sorry, but by that time I was 26, 27, 28 years old, and they would come, and so I would oftentimes go out and meet them at the car and talk with them as things were getting packed up, and they kept saying to me the same thing, and probably the same thing your parents say to you all the time. I wish I had received the education you are receiving. What a tragedy that the gift that you are receiving, 2,000 years of treasure, jewels, treasures which can change your life. My parents and the parents of the other students that were here didn't have it. And so I made a decision to dedicate my life to giving that gift that I received here at Christendom College to others. I finished in 2004 and went on to a master's in theology at Christendom. I became a DRE at a local parish. But as they both said, the biggest problem a director of religious education has is that they have the children for 1 hour out of the week. And the rest of that week, they are in the secular world undoing everything you have taught them. I don't care how good you are at communicating the faith. You cannot compete with that. It's not possible. Unless the parents are in the home teaching their children, unless they have the gift, which they have been ordained to do, by the way, and that's the teaching of the church, then we will continue to fail to evangelize the next generation. No great program, no great teaching tool is going to do that. What is going to do that is by setting up a culture in which the children are raised in the faith. And the only way that can happen is to give the parents the tools to raise them. And so after struggling a bit as a DRE, well, I think actually I did quite well as a DRE and as a youth minister, but realizing that fact, I founded the Institute of Catholic Culture to work outside of the bureaucracy of the church for the sake of the church, for the sake of Christ. Not in conflict with it, but finding ways around the roadblocks which bureaucracy sets up. And so we've done that with the Institute of Catholic Culture. Now, about 8 years old, what do? We offer Christendom's education, or at least a taste of Christendom's education to the lay faithful out in the public in the parishes. We're out there introducing them to Boethius, introducing them to Plato's Republic, introducing them to the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas, getting them into the sacred scriptures so that they can come alive and on fire for Jesus Christ. As you know, you cannot love what you do not know. Don't worry about them out there. They're going to be fine. Listen to me. You cannot love what you do not know. And if the vast majority of Catholics today, adult Catholics, do not know the faith, then it is no wonder that our churches are dead. The flame of the Holy Spirit isn't burning within it. And it's only when we teach them the truth that they're going to be able to love it. And I've found this is very much true at the Institute of Catholic Culture. We are talking with average lay faithful in the pew, going into parishes and teaching them the foundations in philosophy, theology, sacred scripture. You say they're not interested? Absolutely nonsense. They are hungry for the faith. They're hungry for the education that you received and they did not. And so I would say to you that my job, my vocation in life through the Institute has been very profound and a great gift in my life. Is it challenging, as they have said? Absolutely. I don't want a job that's not challenging. Is it a struggle? Absolutely. Do I work way more than 40 hours a week? Absolutely. Do I punch a time card? Absolutely not. I am available 100% of the time, as my wife knows. Available and active and working as I am here with you while my kids are being put to bed. Okay? We cannot hide our light under a bushel basket. And do you realize that the faith and the gift of education that you have received at Christendom College is one of a kind? You are a select group of people. And I'm serious about that. And I don't care if you add TAC and Steubenville and Ave Maria and all the other good Catholic colleges that are out there, you are still a drop in the bucket. But when that drop hits water, it has an ability to ripple out into the world and change the surface of a pond. It has the ability to change the surface of a lake. In fact, I think it has the ability to change the world. And I would encourage you to take seriously that gift you have received. Not to go become doctors of bodies. Not to go become accountants of bank accounts. Not to become lawyers. Let other people do that. You have received a gift from Jesus Christ, and I believe you've been chosen for it. I know I have. He chose you for this day. And while the world is in darkness, and we look out and we say, how bad it is out there. The president's doing that, or the Congress is doing that. How bad our parish is, or our priest is doing that, or the bishop is doing that. How bad. Stop pointing the finger. Because you have been chosen to light a fire in our church so that our church can be strong again. And if our church is strong again, our society is going to be strong again. I think I can leave it at that. I've had enough. I didn't bring up any notes with me, but maybe I'll share with you one beautiful quotation from Pope Benedict XVI. Today it is up to you, brothers and sisters, to offer the risen Christ to your fellow citizens. Pay attention, because I'm going to ask you a philosophy question. How many philosophy students do we have here? Okay. You didn't want to raise your hand because Dr. Flippin's sitting here. Today it is up to you, brothers and sisters, to offer the risen Christ to your fellow citizens. Someone may object. Why not leave them in peace? They have their truth, and we have ours. That's a philosophical error. What type of philosophical error is that, my philosophy students? They have their truth, and we have ours. That's epistemological relativism. Okay? Do you realize the other day I was having my blood pressure taken by this lady? And she says, oh, I was a Catholic. And I said, what happened? And she said, well, the Catholic Church might be true for you, but it's not true for me. My blood pressure went through the roof. I use my Christendom education daily in Bible study, daily in conversation, daily in every aspect of my life. I'll finish the quote for you. Why not leave them in peace? They have their truth and we have ours. But if we are convinced and have come to experience that without Christ, life lacks something real. Indeed, the most real thing of all is missing. We must also be convinced that we do no injustice to anyone if we present Christ to them. Indeed, we must do this. It is our duty to offer everyone this possibility of attaining eternal life. That is the mission which Jesus Christ has called you to. Don't waste it. Go out and set the church on fire. Set your parishes on fire. Are you worried about how you're going to make ends meet? Don't worry. Jesus Christ is going to take care of it. If you trust in him, you will turn the world upside down. You will turn your parishes upside down. You will become a prophetic witness in the church, and you will upset it as the prophets did. You will upset the comfortable nature of the clergy, and I'm one of them. How comfortable it is to sit in our pews. You will upset it. But when you upset it, you will upset it with Jesus Christ, and you will change lives. And those lives you change will change others' lives. Amen? Amen. God bless you.